of the world. Oh, my people, seek the truth, avoid the evil. Learn Yahweh's ways. Torah Life Ministries.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries. We are in the beautiful state of Tennessee, and we're at a nature center here, and we're going to do this week's Torah Parashah, which is the 40th reading in this year's cycle. And this week's Parashah is from Numbers 22:2 to 25:9. Now, I teach about health and modesty according to the scriptures at Torah Life Ministries, and I very often refer to this week's Torah Parashah because it talks about the consequences of us mingling with the world and doing things that we're told not to do, and how the world can entice us to do those things and actually justify them. Now, in the scriptures it says to have no other gods before me. It says do not worship anyone else. But just like King Solomon had all this money and all this wisdom, but what took him away from Yahweh was all of the women that he was with. They all made him or convinced him to bow down to other gods, to the gods that those women were worshiping. And that was a problem. Well, we see here a problem in this week because we see it's the story of Balaam and Balak. And basically, Balak was the king of Moab at the time, and he knew the Israelites will come in. And he heard about all they had done, and he was told about this, and he was quite worried about it. So he wanted to curse the children of Israel. He wanted to curse them so they didn't create a problem with the people of Moab. But to do that, what he did was he found out about a prophet named Balaam, and Balaam he contacted him and asked him to curse the children of Israel. And Balaam said, I cannot do that because I can only do, and I only have the power to do, what Yahweh our Creator tells me to do. Well, Balak kept trying to entice him or get him to go against what Yahweh said. Regardless of what Yahweh said, he just wanted these children cursed so they couldn't take over and destroy Moab. Well, he went to him once, not twice, but 3 times, and he kept telling him, increasing his offer of what he will offer Balaam if he cursed the people of Israel, because he knew the prophet that Balaam was and what can happen. Well, finally we see here, it says, you see Balaam says, I have no power of my own to say anything. That was in Numbers 22:38. He said, I have no power in my eyes to say anything. You know, it's what Yahweh puts in my mouth is what I can say, and that's it, no more, no less. So he had the right idea. He had the right thinking, but we see he still had the wrong motives, because his motive was about money, and that's what he wanted to get. So he wanted to find the loophole in what Yahweh was saying, so he could not really bless or curse the children of Israel, because I believe Balaam didn't care either way if they were blessed or cursed. He just wanted to get something out of this process in terms of money or some financial gain or something like this. He didn't want to walk away empty-handed. And so we talk about this, and one thing that was very interesting to me is to see how blind so many people are today spiritually. And we might see things with our fleshly human sight, but we miss so many things with our visual sight. Because we see here in this week's Torah Parashah, we see Balaam going to meet Balak, and he's riding his donkey when he's going to do that. And his donkey has the spiritual vision and sees the angel standing in the middle of the road. But Balaam doesn't see it, so he gets off his donkey and he starts beating his donkey. Until, as it says in the scriptures, it says, then Yahweh opened Balaam's eyes so they could see the angel standing in the way, with his drawn sword in his hand. So what this shows us is so many people are walking around in blindness, spiritual blindness. Now, this was supposedly a prophet of Yahweh who was still in spiritual blindness until Yahweh opened his eyes. And many times things happen in our lives, sometimes things that seem like tragedies, sometimes things that seem like good things. The problem is they seem like these things to our own human carnal flesh, not really in a spiritual realm. But when we see these things from a spiritual realm, we see a completely different story, a completely different thing. And then what it does, just like it cleared up the understanding with Balaam of why the donkey stopped, that the donkey was trying to help him, when we get our spiritual vision, when Yahweh opens our eyes, we start to see things and think in a whole new light, in a whole new world. And we can only understand this when we start seeing those things. But it really comes down to one of the great blessings that Yahweh has installed for us is to take away our spiritual blindness and to let us see the things that He wants us to see, the really important things. Well, He showed this to Balaam, and Balaam saw all this, but still that wasn't enough for Balaam, because Balak was very angry that every time Balaam was supposed to curse the children of Israel, he seemed to have blessed them. But he said, look, I'm not doing this. I am just repeating what Yahweh told me to do, and Yahweh told me to bless the children of Israel. So Balak wasn't happy, and Balaam was just trying to, it seems, just trying to follow instructions. But when we look at later what happened, we see it goes on to say, and this is why I was talking earlier about King Solomon and how the women convinced King Solomon, the man with all this spiritual knowledge, to go against Yahweh and to worship other gods. It says here in Numbers 25, in Numbers 25:7, it says, Israel stayed in Shittim, which was near Moab, and it says, and the people began whoring with women of Moab. These women invited the people to the sacrifice of their gods, where the people ate, bowed down to their gods, with Israel thus joining in to Baal-peor, and the anger of Yahweh fumed. You see what happened here. It says in Numbers 25, 1, it says, Israel stayed at Shittim, which was near Moab, and it said, and there the people began whoring with the women of Moab. And these women invited the people to make sacrifice to their gods, where the people ate and bowed down to their gods. It says, so what happened was, apparently, even though it doesn't say it directly, Balaam told Balak, look, I can't curse the children of Israel, but I could tell you how to bring them to their downfall. And this is how. Have the Israelite men mingle with the women of the world. And the women of the world, just like they did with King Solomon, will take them away from Yahweh and make them bow down to other gods. And if Israel's strength is Yahweh, well, if Yahweh's anger is going to blaze against them because they're doing against what He said not to do by bowing down to other gods and having other gods before Him, that would be their downfall. So Balaam, he had this idea, and it was true, and it worked. And that's exactly what happened, and that's what the enemy knows, because that's what's happening in the world today. People are leaving Yahweh. They're bowing to other gods for many, many reasons. But one of the most common reasons is because the men of Israel are mingling with the women of the world. See, the enemy knows how to make these things happen, and that's what happened then, and that's what's happened now. We have to have a different spirit. We have to have the spirit like it says here. If we keep reading in this week's Torah, there was a fellow named Phinehas, and it says, in Numbers 25:6, just then, in the sight of Moses and the whole community of Israel, as they were weeping in the entrance of the tent of meeting, a man from Israel came by, bringing to his family a woman from Malter, which was one of these women. And so here is this, right in front of the leaders. He didn't even try to hide it, and he tried to bring this woman of the world, this hua, this prostitute, right in front of the people of Israel, right in front of the leaders of Israel, right in front of their tent, not even hiding it. And that's the way it's done today. I mean, the people that live in sin, they don't even do it anymore hiding it. They do it wide out in the open, because they don't think about the consequences of what they're doing. They're not only destroying themselves, but they're destroying the whole community. Well, we have to have the heart of Phinehas. When Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the Cohen, saw it, he got up from the middle of the crowd, took a spear in his hand, and pursued the man from Israel right into the inner part of the tent, where he thrusted the spear through both of them. And nevertheless, this stopped the plague, where 24,000 people died. So 24,000 people died here because the men of Israel were mingling where they shouldn't have been mingling, with the women of the world. And this is what happens today. The women of the world entice the men of Yahweh to mingle with them. How do they do that? Well, they're not just in the world, folks. They're right there in the church. They're right there in the assemblies. These are the women that look, act, and dress just like the women of the world today. They wear their high heels with their fancy makeup and their tight clothes, and they entice the men away from their families, away from Yahweh's community, away from Yahweh's order, into the sinfulness of the world. And this is where it all begins. You know, we have to be careful, and we have to keep the community pure. And the men and the women need to be pure-minded, pure thinking, and they need to look and dress holy, which is set apart from the world. You have to ask yourself, men and women, if you're standing next to somebody of the world that is not a believer and somebody else walks by you, are they going to be able to tell the difference of who's a believer and who's not? We have been given instructions of how to carry ourselves, how to dress, and how to look. You know, and most people aren't following that today, and this has created a problem. I say it all. The high heels are one of the greatest tricks of the enemy to destroy the community of Yahweh. I'll say it again. The way people wear makeup today, and with the spirit behind the makeup industry, it's another trick of the enemy to take people away from Yahweh and destroy communities and destroy families. You know, and we see here the weakness of the men of Israel, the weakness of King Solomon. We saw the weakness of King David, and the weakness of a man is the physical attractiveness of a beauty, of a woman. And the only man that should be looking at a naked woman is a woman's husband. That's it. No other woman. But if a woman's walking down the street half naked, the man can't help it because he's a man. So women, you need to wake up and start covering your bodies in the right places. And you need to stop dressing like the whois of this world. And stop destroying the community of Yahweh. And men, we need to be like Phinehas and stop the community from being destroyed as soon as we see what's going on. We see a lot of different things in this Torah Parashah. We see the men sinning and not even doing it in hiding. They just do it right out in the open. But then we see Phinehas, you know, do what we're called to do, and that's keep the community pure. Everybody, you know, will learn more about Phinehas in next week's reading. If you have any comments or questions, just post them below the video. But this is serious stuff, folks. I mean, the end times are coming soon, so we need to be ready, we need to be prepared. We need to act, think, and look like the people of Yahweh. When you get up in the morning, how you dress, where you go, who you speak with, what you say, in everything. Follow Yahweh's word and guidelines and instructions, and you will be tremendously blessed. But if you go against those words, guidelines, and instructions, trust me, there will be consequences to pay, and they won't be pretty. You have a choice, everybody. I pray that you make the right choice. As for me and my house, we shall serve Yahweh. All right, everybody, this is Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries with this week's Torah Parashah. And, you know, Yahweh bless you, and shalom, shalom.
Come out of the world, oh my people, seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's ways.